Alright, welcome to the first Anatomy and Physiology 2 tutorial. This first one is just going to cover the relationship between the hypothalamus and then the two different lobes of the pituitary. And I've stolen here in this first slide an image from the chapter on the CNS. So you can see the hypothalamus here, and then connected to it is the pituitary with the posterior lobe and the anterior lobe, just so you can see where it's situated. So moving along, we'll first start by talking about the posterior pituitary. What you want to notice about the posterior pituitary is that it is a direct outgrowth from the hypothalamus. So you have neurons who have their somas, the cell body with the nucleus, the control center, in the hypothalamus, and then they have axons that have grown down into the posterior pituitary. So the posterior pituitary is literally an extension of the hypothalamus. So what you have then is the situation where cell bodies, or somas, in the hypothalamus synthesize the hormones, transport them down the axons, and then store the hormones in the axon terminals, just like they were a neurotransmitter like acetylcholine. So how it would work then is you would have neurons in the hypothalamus would be monitoring the amount of water in the bloodstream. If they detect a decrease in the amount of water in the bloodstream, this is going to cause them to generate an action potential, which will travel down the axons to the axon terminals in the posterior pituitary and cause the release of antidiuretic hormone. Next stop is the anterior pituitary. So the anatomical relationship between the anterior pituitary and the hypothalamus is different. The neurons in the hypothalamus, in the case of the anterior pituitary, stop before they reach the anterior pituitary. And where they end is a capillary bed that serves portal veins that then empty into the anterior pituitary. So instead of directly controlling release from the anterior pituitary the way the hypothalamus does with the posterior pituitary, it uses releasing hormones that are going to travel through the portal veins. So let's take the example of growth hormone. You have a group of neurons in the hypothalamus that, for some reason that is not important to us right now, decide it is now time for the body to grow. They are going to generate an action potential and then release some of their hormone, in this case growth hormone, releasing hormone, into the hypophyseal portal vein. That will carry growth hormone releasing hormone to the anterior pituitary, and there it will stimulate the release of growth hormone. So the hypothalamus dumps releasing hormones or inhibiting hormones into the portal vein, and that causes the anterior pituitary to either increase or decrease the amount of one of these anterior pituitary hormones. And that's the first tutorial.